بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. Tonight, inshallah, we're going to start the first part of Kitab al-Janaiz, which is from the same book that we did majority of. I think we stopped. We did Kitab al-Tahara, Wudu, Ghusl, and everything from the same book, from Al-Thamaraat. And the next section is Kitab al-Janaiz. And it's worthy based on, especially based on the type of time that we live in now, and based on how many janazahs that the Muslims are praying on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, at least here in Philly, in this city, and the rate of death, how many people are dying and the speed that people are dying at. All of that is relevant. So the chapter is relevant. And there are many people who don't know how to pray janazah. They don't know how to pray the prayer. They don't know the etiquettes and what you're supposed to do with the janazah, how you should come to a janazah. People just showing up thinking that my man died or I knew him for a long time, let me show up and show my respect. And the janazah for the Muslim is it entails, and respect is part of it, but it's worship. And there's no way that we worship except that we have to learn how to perform that worship, how we're supposed to do it, what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. And in a situation like we're in now, where there's so many janazahs going on, and for those who know, they know, and for those who don't know, they don't know. But if you go to a janazah, generally, you see a lot of people don't know what to do. People standing around, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. It's not like that. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. People coming to the janazah high, as if that's some type of respect for the person that's dead. People putting on overgarments and high, yeah, like on. People coming to the janazah on. Whatever word they use now, I thought high was general for all generations. Whatever they're using now, people coming to the janazah on drugs, either drunk, whatever they doing, showing up like we in the street or something. And the janazah is worship. We're Muslim. The janazah is a form of worship. So let alone coming intoxicated, how you want to pray intoxicated, or any other thing that happens at a janazah prayer that's not appropriate for the janazah prayer. So it's important that if we know people, and we all do, somebody's here and we know they don't know how to pray a janazah, we need to, whatever we find out and we learn, we need to relay the message, because we in trouble, y'all. We go to these janazahs and we see people, brothers and sisters, and stuff is just chaotic. And it's only chaotic because we're not learning what we're supposed to do. So this book itself is on the introductory level. So it's inshallah, it's easy to comprehend. It should be easy to digest. It's not a book of khilaf where it's a bunch of difference of opinion mentioned. It is translated, actually. I have a translation here if anybody wants to get the translation. I don't know where they sell it. I ordered it off of Amazon. Hanabali Acts of Worship is the translation. By Musa Ferber, translation by Musa Ferber. Hanabali Acts of Worship, the Supreme Synopsis. If you want to get it to, follow along, it's worth getting. It's a good buy, mashallah. It's a good buy. But these are issues we're gonna be dealing with throughout our lives. It's not like we only pray janazah for this month, and then next month we won't have to pray janazah, or this year we pray janazah. No, we Muslims, so we're gonna be doing this for the rest of our lives, and then it's gonna be us that somebody's gonna be praying janazah over. On top of that, this is an issue, and these issues here are a lot of times uh, determining factors, or this is where the line is drawn. A lot of times, death, a lot of times is where the line is drawn between families, because most of us, our families are not Muslims, and a lot of us don't take the time to educate our families on the way the Muslims practice their religion, down to the janazah. When it comes to my burial, when it comes to the prayer, we don't educate our families. And then when a Muslim dies, if we don't have anything in place, it's death, it's emotional. The emotions kick in. The family members are not Muslim. And then they say, what? I'm burying my son or my daughter the way I want to bury him. And they don't respect the rights. Even if you were a Muslim, they knew you used to pray and all of that. Right? It gets emotional. And due to the fact it could be from a lack of communication from us, and it could just be the emotion. And sometimes it works out, and a lot of times it doesn't work out. So he's going to mention some things in here about the wasiyah, the will, and other things. Everybody clear? Tayyib. It doesn't mean that whatever is mentioned in this book is the only way to do things, right? That's never the case. It's never the case. Usually it's never the case on an issue like this, where whatever we hear here, you have to do it exactly this way. And if you don't, then you're doing it incorrectly. There are some issues that may come like that, but in general, it's possible you may see people doing things slightly different, which is sometimes is okay and sometimes it's not okay. What's the point of the book? The point of the book is if you do it like this, inshallah, your salat al-janazah is fine. Is it another way to do it? Possibly, but this is not the book to mention every single way to pray the janazah prayer and the things connected to the janazah prayer. Clear? Everybody clear so far? Tayyib. Number one, he says Kitabul Janaiz. Number one, the question is, what is understood by janazah? Huh? A funeral. Tayyib. Somebody has to get prayed over, a funeral. The word janazah, it could be said sometimes with a kasra, or jinazah. Either janazah or jinazah, which is referred usually to either one or two things. We understand it as a funeral, but the word itself, the deceased, the person that's deceased, can be referred to as the janazah, or the actual person that's deceased on the bed, when they're on that bed that they're on, right? That could also be considered the janazah or the jinazah, and it's a discussion about is the janazah for the person or for the person on the bed. But it could be janazah or jinazah, either referring to the person or the person on the bed. If it's just a bed with no person on it, then it's, what is it called? It's a bed. But if a person if there's a bed with a body on it, a dead body on it, then it's referred to as a janazah or a jinazah. Tayyib. He starts off and he says, Tarqud dawa'i afdal. All of this has to do with what? Death and the circumstances leading up to death. All right. So the first thing he says is not, or he says it's better not to take medicine. He says what? It's better to not take medicine. That's what the author says. And this is right from the first thing in the book. This is a discussion in itself. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ is a hadith that says tadawu, take medicine. There's no problem with using medicine. Clear? Now the discussion about taking medicine, because the question comes, is it allowed? Are Muslims allowed to take medicine? That's how it usually comes. Right? Are Muslims allowed to take medicine? Muslims are allowed to take medicine. Should, because the author says it's better. Should you take medicine when you get sick, or should you not take medicine? Let me ask you a question. Why would a sick person decide not to take medicine? A person is sick and you say, why don't you just take this? They say, no, I'm not taking it. Why would a person decide not to take medicine? Huh? Maybe it's what? Maybe it's a purification for their sins. So if they take the medicine, is it not still a purification for their sins? You know what I'm saying? Huh? If the medicine wasn't prescribed by who? The doctor? Like the doctor says, take this 3 times a day. Person says, no, I'm not gonna take it. I'm not worried about the side effects. I'm just not taking it. He said he crazy. You can imagine him.
I can't remember exactly, but it's something about they need a lot out of your record and that whole one. So something along the line.
As they say, and they use their hadiths in Kitab al-Tawheed, that it goes back to them saying, I'm just going to depend on Allah to cure me. Tawakkul. Right? Now, I'm not telling everybody. It's not, y'all. This is not everybody leave here and the brother said, well, I'm not take medicine no more. We're talking about the discussion. Why would the author say that? That's the first thing he says in the chapter. To leave off the medicine. Let me see how you translate it. He says, foregoing medical treatment is superior. Foregoing medical treatment is superior. And it's better not to do what? Not to just irresponsibly do something like that. But the idea is that I'm going to trust on Allah. Put my trust in Allah that Allah is going to cure me. And then you have the other side where the Prophet ﷺ encourages us to take medicine, as long as we're not taking something that is haram. So in our case, we're not saying that you should not take medicine, but we're just saying that why would the author say that? Based on that understanding, to put their trust in Allah, and the hadith connected to it. طيب. After that, he says, Sunnah istidadun lil maut. He says now, he mentions 9 things that are recommended, 9 recommended things. We got to understand what recommended means. It's important because we use words in English and sometimes they carry multiple meanings. Everybody with me? Like, for example, you meet you see a Muslim, a Muslim, say, yo, man, you shouldn't have no girlfriend. You shouldn't be having a girlfriend and stuff like that. What does that mean? You shouldn't have a girlfriend? Huh? You can't. But what does shouldn't mean? Shouldn't doesn't mean you can't. You understand what I'm saying? Shouldn't means like what? That's not really a good thing to be doing. But Islamically, no, it's more than not just a good thing you should be doing. It's haram, it's forbidden. We're not allowed to do that. That's sinful. So when we use the terms, we'll make sure we understand the terms. Now the term here is recommended. Is recommended, sunnah. Sunnah, to prepare yourself for death. To prepare yourself for death. And as some say in the explanation of the book, that it's obligatory to be prepared for death. We need to be prepared for death. Now the question is, how does a Muslim prepare to die? Jade. He gets his affairs in order. What does that mean? Because imagine this. Imagine a non-Muslim came to you and said, well, how do Muslims prepare for death? And you say to them, we get our affairs in order.
Now, when you break that down, you have your will prepared, like trying to write your body over to so-called imagine.
So you get a will. Okay.
The brothers and sisters that have non-Muslim family members.
It's okay. Educating your family. Tell you. Okay. Doing what you're supposed to do. Living like a Muslim. The best preparation for death is to live now like a Muslim. So that when Allah calls us that we're doing something, whenever the angel of death comes, that we're doing something that's pleasing to Allah. And that we're not doing something that we shouldn't be doing. Being ready at all times to die. Because none of us know when Allah is going to call us back. So we got to be ready at all times, which means we need to be doing things that are pleasing to Allah at all times. At the least, staying away from what we're not supposed to be doing all the time. Because we could walk out here tonight Any of us could walk out here tonight and anything can happen. And I'll just use this because it's the type of city we live in. People get killed by straight bullets all the time. All the time. Mistaken identities, all the time. Car accidents, all the time. Nobody is safe. Nobody is safe, right? Literally. Nobody is exempt from dying tonight. And only Allah knows. We ask Allah to protect us and take us when we are doing something that is pleasing to Him. I mean, Tayyib, he says number one is recommended to prepare yourself for death. وَإِكْثَارٌ مِنْ ذِكْرِهِ. He says also recommended to constantly remember what? Death. If a person constantly speaks about death, what do people say about it? Huh? You what? You had a death wish. If a person constantly speaks about death and remembers death, I'm not talking about the right answer, y'all. Like, the people in our society, if you always talking about death, do people consider that something positive? No. It's like gloomy. You like a gloomy. You always talking about death, right? Right? It's not, you looked at it as something that is positive. But for the Muslim to understand, we don't know. All we have is what's in front of us right now. You constantly had on your mind that Allah is watching me. My deeds are being recorded. I need to do more. I need to do better. And this is why you find those stories of the Salaf, those biographies of the Salaf, when they say, it sounds like they're doing these amazing things that it sounds like nobody can do that much. Who could do that? These are people who had this type of mentality, thinking about death. They hear ayat, you read some of the athar, some of the narrations, such and such heard the verse read from the Quran and he fainted when he heard the verse. Right? This type of level of conscience that Allah is watching, and that type of level, right? It pushes a person to do more. But if you're not thinking of death, like a lot of us, and Allah forgive us, we think we got plenty of time. I'll do it next time. I don't even pray my sunnahs. I get to the market before they close. I got to get to the market because I really do need to get to the market. Sunnahs take possibly 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. All right. He says, "Iktharun min dhikrihi." So often, to constantly remember death is also recommended. The next thing he says, وَإِيَادَةُ Muslim غَيْرُ مُبْتَدِعٍ. It's also recommended, and Allahu A'lam, how much we're practicing of this, to visit the sick. To visit the Muslim غَيْرُ مُبْتَدِعٍ. He said, to visit the Muslim that is not an innovator. Recommended to visit who? The Muslim, as long as they're not what? An innovator. The problem is, for some of us, we assume everybody's an innovator, except for the people I know. That's the assumption for some of us. Allah forgive us. That everybody's an innovator, except for these couple people here. So if the brother gets sick, I'm not visiting him. Right? Sunnah is to visit the sick. And we have clear hadith about visiting each other and visiting the sick. So it's also recommended to visit the sick. And the exception of visiting the sick Muslim, the exception is for the innovator. If we even know what an innovator is. If we're sitting here and we don't know what an innovator is, then, right? The exception, we don't even know how to apply the exception to the Muslims that we're talking about. Right? And that's a whole discussion in itself that we won't go into. So that was the third thing, the third recommended thing. It says the fourth thing, وَتَذْكِيرُهُ التَّوْبَةِ وَالْوَصِيَّةِ. To remind the sick person, and this is the sick person that is possibly on their deathbed, that when we visit them, that we should remind them that they should be making tawbah, that they should be seeking Allah's forgiveness, repenting, making sure that they're repenting while they're there on that bed. They don't know if they're going to make it home, right? They don't know if they're coming out of the hospital, even if they think they're coming out of the hospital. Because some people go in and they think they're going in for a quick, and then they never come out. Or they go in thinking it's one thing, they get there and it's a whole nother problem, right? The fact is, he says, when they go to visit them, that they remind them, he says two things. Tawbah, to repent to Allah, remind the person that we visited to repent to Allah. He said, and secondly, al-wasiyya, to remind the person of the will. Remember, al-irth, inheritance, is something, and a will is something else. Okay, inheritance is one thing, and a will is another thing. A will, as they say, it could be obligatory, and it could be something that is recommended. If we owe people money, right? We owe people money, then we need to make sure we put it in the will that I owe fulan such and such. If it's not paid off, I owe fulan, I owe such and such this, I owe such and that. Or even if, as they say, even if maybe a brother or sister traveled and they left some of their belongings with you, they say, hold this till I get back. Right? That means when they come back, they trusted you with something that you owe them when they come back. Right? That needs to be known. That needs to be known in the will. Things that we owe to people needs to be known in the will. Tayyib. He said these are the things that a person should be recommended of. He says, فَإِذَا نَزَلَ بِهِ سُنَّ تَعَاهُدُ بَلِّ حَلْقِهِ بِمَاءٍ أَوْ شَرَابٍ. He said the fifth thing is, you know how they say a person's in the hospital and they get to the point and we say it don't look like they're going to make it, right? Say it doesn't look like they're going to make it. They said in this case, it's recommended to wet their lips, moisten their lips with either some water or something just to moisten the lips. Clear? Everybody with me? Or to moisten the throat and the lips, as they mentioned, the throat and the lips. Why is this? This is for the next reason. To moisten the lips of a person that's on their, as we say, their deathbed. And this chapter is going to show the honor and the respect that the Muslims have for each other even when we die. Let alone when we're alive, how we're supposed to treat each other and have respect for each other. Even when the Muslim dies, the honor and respect shown to a person that's dead is, alhamdulillah, Islamically, it shows the respect for your brother or for your sister. That now the person is on their deathbed and a lot of times they can't move, right? Maybe they can't talk. It's possible they can't talk. They're not responsive, as we said. They're not responsive. Even in this case, it's recommended to try to get them to moisten their throat. We're not saying you stuff nothing. It's nothing is never forced and made hard on the person that's on their deathbed. That's why it says it's recommended to do this. It's not like the brother said you had to pour some water on his mouth and loosen his lips up. Because it's possible you go to touch the person and they turn. They don't want to be touched. Right? And we don't want to make the situation worse when the person's in that situation. But it's recommended to give them something, whether it's water or something to drink, to moisten their throat and to moisten their lips. Does anybody know why? For what reason? What do they need what do they need their lips moistened for? Huh? Who? For dhikr? Yeah, Jade. What dhikr? The most important dhikr at this time. La ilaha illallah. Is recommended to, you know, we talking about sick people. We talking about real stuff. A person's in a hospital bed. They might have been in there for however long. And sometimes the body starts to dry up. It's difficult for them to talk. Allah protect us. I mean, so sometimes the lips are dry. The throat is dry. The recommendation is to moisten the lips and moisten the throat so that it's easy for them to pronounce the shahada on their deathbed. That's what's preferable. The preferable is that the last thing a person says is the shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And that's the next thing that's recommended. After if we're able to moisten a person's lips and moisten a person's throat, if we're able to, he says next thing, وَتَلْقِينُهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ مَرَّةً. And we want to try to encourage the person to say the shahada just one time. So let's just say, for example, a person's on their deathbed. We're not talking about somebody. We're talking about somebody on their deathbed. They're on the verge of dying. Person on the verge of dying, We're not really talking about, shouldn't be talking about the lunch we had and all this, a bunch of frivolous things that really is not the time for that right now. That the most important thing at this point is to try to encourage the person to say the shahada. It's called talqeen, talqeen, talqeen. To encourage the person to repeat after you the shahada, right? How many times? Even if they said it one time. If we can get them to say the shahada one time, that's enough. Clear? That's why it says marra ولا يزاد على الثلاث إلا أن يتكلم فيعاد برفق. Let me see how you translate it. Even if the only time a person should go or encourage the person to say the shahada at this point more than once is if, let's say for example, you're talking to a person there on their death, you're talking to them, tell them to repeat after you, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and they repeat after you, they say the shahada, right? At that point, khalas, leave them. Why? Huh? You don't want to exert any energy for you or for them. Play it. What else? You don't want them to say anything else. Okay. You want it to be their last words. You don't want them to say anything else and then die, and then their last words are not the shahada. Right? You don't want them to say anything else. What does that mean? Meaning, if that was the last thing they said, if you got them to say the shahada on their deathbed one time and that was the last thing they said and they died, alhamdulillah. But what if after they said the shahada, they said something else? They start having a whole nother conversation. What should you do? The recommendation is to try to get them to say the shahada again. How many times they said do that? 3 times. You don't want to burn them out, right? You don't want to agitate. We don't want to agitate the person that's on their deathbed any more than they may already be agitated. So he says not to have them repeated more than 3 times, except if a person does, they speak again, and then even when you do it, he says be rifqin, that to be gentle, easy with the person, not like force them. Just say it, man, because it might be somebody we really close to. It might be somebody you love, and they're not saying it, and you don't think they're gonna make it, and maybe they're not a Muslim, and you want to pray Janazah for them. I'm not trying to be funny, I'm serious. So now you get a little forceful. Just say it, right? Just say it one time. Forget, and you start talking a little aggressive, and it's not really the time for that. Even though that's a person that we love laying there, we hoping for the best, but Allah makes Muslims, we don't make Muslims. We don't want to make the situation worse. So that's why it says gently be rifqin, that we say it nice. You're trying to be soft with them. And they might be agitated and you didn't do anything. It might be that the person is just agitated and you didn't do anything. But that doesn't mean because they're agitated, we're going to start screaming and pointing and shaking them and making them, trying to take them to force them to say it and possibly make them say something else that's displeasing to Allah. So yeah, he says after that, the next recommended thing, he says, Qira'at al-Fatiha wa Yasin indahu. He says to read Surah Yasin or read Al-Fatiha or Surah Yasin while the person is there, not dead, that they're on their deathbed. And the scholars, some of them argue this because they say that the hadith for this is weak. And some say that reading the Quran when a person is on their deathbed, they say that it makes it easier for the soul to be removed from the person's body with the Qira'at al-Quran, especially these days. Some say these 2 surah, especially Surah Yasin, based on what's being discussed in that surah, Allahu A'lam, because some of the scholars have argued that the hadith that mention that are not authentic. Allahu A'lam. But if we see a person, you go to the hospital to visit a brother, and he's on his deathbed, and you walk in, and it's a brother reading Surah Yasin, right? It's a brother reading Surah Yasin. What you gonna do? I hope, because I'm telling you how we are. We walk out the room, I can't be around them. It's bid'ah. He said the hadith is weak. The innovators, I can't be around them, I'm out. They don't go in and make dua for the brother on the deathbed. Don't go in all the other sunnah. They leave off because they walk and they see a brother doing something that some of the scholars said the hadith is weak. And then they leave off all the other khair that is there in the situation based on coming in and seeing a brother read Surah Al-Fatiha. Tayyib. He says the ninth thing that is recommended. All these things are recommended. So if a person went to visit this a person on their deathbed and they didn't do any of these things, it wouldn't be like they did something haram. It wouldn't be like they disobeyed the law, but they missed out on a lot of reward. They missed out on a lot of good. There's a lot of good deeds that they just missed out on by not doing these things. Tayyib. This is all before. Everything there is before the person, what? Huh? Before they die. All of that's when they're on their deathbed. All of that's happening when the person's on their deathbed. They look like, as I say, it don't look like he's going to make it. Or it doesn't look like she's going to make it. Tayyib. He says after that, well, even matter. If the person dies, then there's some things also that we should do, that are recommended to do. Has anybody here ever washed a body? 2, 3, that's it. 4, come on, 5, that's it. 6. Every time I say that's it, somebody gonna raise their hand. But yeah, has everybody ever been in the room present when a person died, at the moment they died? Anybody ever been there? 2 people, 3 people, 4. Tayyib. In that situation, and this is these issues. This is right now. It's a book. This is book talk now. I'm not talking about when emotions is running high and people screaming in the background, and right, possibly the mother's there or the wife is there or the husband is there or the kids are there, and it's chaos, right? And this is part of sabr, patience. In these type of times is a time when somebody, as we say, somebody got to stand up and do what needs to be done Islamically. And a lot of times, y'all, it might be the people in this room. A lot of us, we're the only Muslims in our family. A lot of times we know people call you up because they son Muslim and you're the only Muslim they know. So they say, I need you to come over here because my son is doing such and such. I don't know what to do. His mom not Muslim, none of his family is Muslim, so they call you. They assume, the assumption is, what do they assume? You know what to do. They assume you know. So they call you and you got to go over there. And let's say he dies or she dies right there in the house or wherever it is in front of you. Now, these are the things that is recommended to do. Number 1, to close the eyes of the person, because people die a lot of times with the eyes open. All right, so the eyes are open. Sunnah to do what? Close the eyelids. That means you have to do what, y'all? You got to touch a dead body. That's why if we haven't washed the body, we should wash, because that's going to be us. It's going to be us. Somebody's going to have to wash us, right? So we should get used to it, washing each other. And if we do this kind of stuff, it makes us look at each other. If you go wash your body, whoever has not washed your body, if you go wash your body and you come back here and see these brothers that you always see, you look at them a little different. It's a little different because he might be washing you. I might have to wash him. You know what I'm saying? You have to touch the body. Can you touch a dead body? Is it permissible to touch a dead body? It's permissible to touch a dead body. Tell you, all of these things are going to show us that it's permissible to touch a dead body. He says number two, this is after the person dies, that they should shaddu lihyehi, that you should close their mouth. You know the face when people die, that their eyes are open and their mouth is open, right? That's the face of a lot of people who die. Their eyes are open when they die. When the soul is taken, their eyes are open and their mouth is open. They say you should, number 1, close the eyes, and number 2, close the mouth. What's the benefit of closing the mouth? Huh? So that nothing gets inside of the mouth. Well, what's going to get inside of a dead person's mouth? Before we even get to the grave. Huh? Bugs. They're going to be in the freezer. They're going to take them to the morgue and put them in the freezer. They're going to take us to the morgue and put us in the freezer. Hair. Well, maybe. All right, this question is for the people who wash the body before. Water. Because when we wash them, when we wash each other, it's going to be water. Like you put water on each other, like making a whole ghusl. You don't want water running through the body because that can cause other things to loosen up. And then it can cause, I'm not supposed to use that word they said. It could cause fluid to come out. It could cause fluid to come out. If water goes on the inside and it hits other, it could cause fluids to come out. So to close the eyes, to shut the mouth, and everything y'all said later on when we get to the grave, so bugs and stuff don't enter into the body, which shows that the honor for the body of the Muslim, even when he or she is dead, that we still respect each other, even when we dead. He says, number 3, وَتَلْيِينُ مَفَاصِلِهِ, to loosen the joints, like the joints, to loosen them up, right? Does anybody know the benefit in that? I forgot the English term for it, but what is it? Yeah, that's it. Yes. The stiffening. When the limbs stiffen up, it's difficult. It's going to be difficult to wash and move the body once it comes time for washing. So you want to do the stiffening. Anybody that hasn't seen it, that was probably at least 6 months ago when we did the Janazah workshop here. And that's Allah. Allah yahfadhuhu. Allah forgive him his sins and protect him. But he did a whole assimilation here, and there was a body on the table, brother was on the table, and he went through it was 2 hours. It was 2 hours. It's on the Imam Muslim page. It was 2 hours worth of Janazah workshop. All of the details that we just talking here, but it was done with somebody live right here on the table. If you haven't seen it, you should go back to put a picture to the words so that it makes sense. Tell you. And we should remember, y'all, when we're going through this is not for dead people. This is for us. This is what we got to go through. This is what people want to do to us. Just like we have to do to other people, right? People want to come, we die, they close our eyes, shut our mouth, and hoping that, right, nothing gets inside, loosen our arms up. To remove the clothing from a person. Take a person's clothes off because we have to be washed. That's from the honor of the Muslim, is that the Muslim is washed after we die. We wash each other and clean each other, right? So the clothes are going to be removed. And it's a way to do it. It's a way to do it. But again, this is the general basic idea of what goes on. It says, وَسَتْرُهُ بِثَوْبٍ. Also, he says to cover the dead body with a piece of cloth, to cover the dead body with something. Of course, we have places where this is done, funeral homes and stuff like that. But even in a funeral home, it's not for the dead bodies to be left out. For the people, even for the people to just walk by and be able to see a dead body with no clothes on it. Because everybody might not do that. We have a certain type, we're Muslim, we have a certain type of way we bury each other. So it's not that we leave people on the table because they did, just leave them there, no clothes on, and we don't treat the believers like that, even when they die. Yes. Now, the people who do this generally are the people at the funeral home. But let's just say you are there at the funeral home, right? Let's just say somebody close to you. Somebody close to you. We got to be somebody close to you dies, they're Muslim, and they family call you up to do the Janazah. They put you in charge of everything. All they know is you. They know you're a Muslim and y'all were good friends. Y'all grew up together, so they call you up. I need you to handle everything. I know y'all do y'all stuff different. I don't know what to do. Well, where you say, where we right here right now. We down at the funeral home. We need you to come down. Is that realistic? That's realistic. Tell you what you want to tell them. I'm not coming. You're going to go down there. Right? At the least, we need to know the basics. I might not know everything, but I need to get down there and try to get them started until somebody else gets here who can take over if need be. Tell you? So even though their clothes are taken off, that they should still be covered. We never just leave the men or the women, never just leave them naked on the table. That even when we take the clothes off, that another cover is put over 'em. The odor should never be exposed. That is recommended to, not the covering is recommended, but to keep the body away from everybody just walking by seeing dead bodies. I don't know if you ever saw this, but in some funeral homes, it's just a room full of dead people. Anybody come in has to walk by a bunch of caskets. There's people in there. The caskets are open, right? Everybody's coming in, right? Even if they are clothed, it's better to put the person's not out on display for people just, right, to put them back. Covering the body itself, the private area, has to be done. Even when the person is dead, it's not allowed just to let the odor, the private area, be exposed, not for the man or the woman. Tayyib. He says next, this is after the person has died. He says, وَوَضُّ حَدِيدًا أَوْ نَحْوِهَا عَلَى بَطْنِهِ. To put something heavy, put something that's a little heavy on the stomach of the dead person. Right? To do what? Huh? Anything in the body, the fluids, whether it's be they had to go to the bathroom with everything, any fluids that's going to come out, it needs to come out now. Clear? We don't need fluid coming out at the grave site on white sheets and family is there and the mother and his family and people emotional, and next thing you know, the wrap is stained with fluid, whether it's blood or whatever it is. We need to try to get everything out now. Everything out, and try to get everything out now so that when we get there, there's no issue. Clear? Of course, this is not done. This is done with some gentleness and respect for the deceased. It's not like we just gonna go in there and start pushing on a dead body's stomach and stuff like that. You'd be surprised, man. The brother was here, he could tell you better than me. You'd be surprised what some people do to dead bodies. You'd be surprised. I tell you one thing that he told me. You got a group of people that they literally, he said he almost jumped on, he didn't know what they were doing. They literally walked up to the dead body and start smacking. Literally. He said he almost had to jump. He didn't know what they were doing, but this was part of their thing, right? Of course, it's not from Islam. This is what they're doing. It's not from Islam, and this is what they're doing. He said literally, there's a line of them. So the point is that everything has to be done gently, that the respect for the deceased is just like the respect if a person was living. So even when the something, whatever it is, the heavy thing that's pushed to make sure that the body is cleaned out, that it's not done aggressively, but it's done with some gentleness. Tayyib. He says, next is that the person should be on, we call it a table, right? But they have certain type of tables for the washing of the body, right? If you go into I'm not sure if all of them have them, but the people who know that how the Muslims do Janazah, a certain type of table, because you got to put water on it, and the water basically runs right down and then falls into a drain and all of that. So he says that the person is put on that table, and they should be elevated slightly. Elevated which way? What should be higher? The head should be a little higher than the feet. We're not talking about nothing crazy, y'all. I don't know, because sometimes they be making like, we Muslims. We not all that stuff they do, people do, and they got people dead at the wake. They watching TV. This is how you want us to remember them, that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? They be having people. It's all kinds of stuff you'll see people do. We're not talking about sitting a dead body up. We're talking about elevation a little bit so that anything, the excess could roll off. Even when the stomach is pressed on, that everything rolls down and is drained out and is washed, because we're going to be washing them, that it drains out. There's nothing extreme, like we're going to stand up a dead body and be holding them up. It's nothing like that. It's a light tilt, so that the head is a little higher than the feet. So when we're washing in the excess, whatever's coming out, if anything comes out, that it drains off properly. طيب. He says after that, also recommended, he says, Isra'u tajhizihi, to quickly prepare the body. Quickly prepare the body to be buried. Now, what's quickly? Huh? What about the next day, if possible? Sometimes, as fast as possible. Sometimes, y'all, sometimes, it's possible that a state requirement doesn't allow a person to do that. It's possible. What are we trying to do? We're trying to practice the deen. If we're not legally able to do it, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And to rush is assuming the person is dead. Like rushing is not me. Oh, he done, man. Let's just start. No, once it's confirmed that the person is dead, then we start making as fast as we're able to, as fast as we're allowed to do so. It doesn't mean we have to start breaking laws and getting funeral homes shut down because we want to practice the sunnah. And the sunnah is this many days, and I don't care what they said, we doing it. We don't have to go that far. As fast as we're able to do it is because all of these things are what? What's the ruling on them? Recommended. Of course, we shouldn't delay it, and we have a hadith. Of course, we should try to do it as fast as possible, if we're able to, as fast as we're able to do it. طيب. Around Christmas? After Christmas?
Yeah.
Oh, astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. Because of what?
Certain cities, here we have Muslims doing it.
Alhamdulillah.
In other cities,
That just show us how. See the problem? We don't have our own stuff. So the problem is, if it's Christmas, it's their holiday. All right, it's their holiday. They want to celebrate their holiday, so they close. We're not opening. We're not going to take off on our holiday. They're not going to tell us to come, right? But if we got our own funeral homes, our own graveyards, we don't have to have that problem. But since we don't, we got to deal with it around Christmas. They're closed, so we can't bury each other as fast as we need, as fast as we would like to. طيب. He says, it is also, he says, وَيَجِبُ. He says, these two things is obligatory to do them quickly. It's recommended to do what quickly? Huh? Yes, the preparing of the body and the burial of the body is recommended to do those things quickly, right? But at the end, he says it's obligatory for two things. I'll just read this to you. It is obligatory to hastily execute his bequest and pay off his debts. Everybody know bequest? Yes, the will. The will. Allah Akbar. Bequest. That's what it says there. So if you get the book and it says bequest, that's a will. We got to get used to not just reading words and going by like, you know what I'm saying, we don't know the word. Look it up. Get the synonym for it. Something that's more probably used more often in your locale. I don't know too many people who use the word bequest, but we know will. That's not a problem. Some areas use words that other areas don't use. That's not an issue. But the translator, that's what he chose to use, which is fine. But we need to understand what that means. We can't just keep reading like we understood it if we really didn't. He says it's obligatory to disperse of whatever the person left in their will, that we should do that quickly. Don't drag it out. It's possible the person owes somebody something. It's possible the person owes a debt. And if a person owes a debt, then that debt needs to be paid like now, like ASAP. Why? Yeah. All of those are hadith. Yes. That a person will be blocked from getting into the paradise, his soul will be suspended. All those are hadith about the person that owes something when they die. For those reasons, it needs to be hurry up. That in those things, he has a will or she had a will to hurry up and execute the will. Whatever they left in their will, try to get all that cleared up like now. Now we're gonna wait till after we bury them, and then we're gonna try to see. No, because people, you know what I'm saying, they get busy with the dunya, and they might forget, and they might say, "I just do it next." You know what? I'm gonna just, I'll wait till next income tax, and I'll do it. And then we start putting it off because, right, it's life. So in that case, this, they say, is obligatory to do it quickly. And this is our brother or our sister. We don't want them held up because we don't want to be held up. We might die owing somebody. We don't want to be held up, and we don't want that for our brother. He says, وَقَضَى دَيْنِهِ. Also, that is obligatory to rush to pay off any debts that the person has. To pay off any debt that the person has. Who should be paying the debt off? Huh? The family initially. Initially, the people that inherit from the person should be paying that debt. That doesn't mean other people can't chip in.
If a person dies and he doesn't have anybody like from the family to pay off his debt, so he asks a friend to, let's say the friend pays off all of his debt. But this kind of like some type of predator, or that a person can eventually move the
Say that again. All of it.
Alright, so a person dies, he doesn't have anybody from his family to pay off his debt.
A Muslim dies and they don't have anybody from their family to pay off their debt. Like, they ask another Muslim, a friend of theirs, that's not their family, to come and pay the debt for them that they don't have nothing to do with. Okay. So you pay the debt off for your man that you grew up with, you had nothing to do with it, but that's your homie, y'all come up together, you're gonna pay his whole debt off. Like, I'm listening.
Does that count as sadaqah?
Yeah, shit. Is that sadaqah? What you think? I want to know what you think. Yeah, what do you think? I want to know how you feel about it. What would you assume? Let me say, what would you assume? Because number one, remember, the people that are not his family can pay it, right? The people that inherit from him, it's on them to pay it. Like the first, let's say the first level of people who should be taking care of that is his family. He doesn't have family. Now, it's possible, and Allahu A'lam, it's possible that is the man left in the will to pay it, or he just stepping up?
He was there at the time right before the person died.
So he's voluntarily doing it. He's voluntarily paying the debt off. Inshallah, sadaqah. Inshallah. Yes.
So like in our country, institutional debt.
What is the institutional debt?
Like creditors, student loans, or stuff like that. Say if you got food,
student loans and
say you get student loans, she died, and when they say when she died, there's no way you have to worry about that.
Your mother had a student loan. She's Muslim?
Yeah,
and she had a student loan.
She died.
Uh-huh.
Student loan just they know they're not getting money because she did it.
Okay.
So in the country, I don't know the rules exactly, but let's say in this country, when you die, you will student loans kind of total.
They relieve you of the debt?
Yeah, they relieve you of that. So let's just consider that you got that right?
I'm just making sure I'm understanding.
Yeah.
They relieve you of the debt.
That was 3 years. More real, man.
So then the question is, they relieve you of the debt. Now, what's the question?
Would you still have to like worry about it?
Even though they relieve you of the debt?
Yeah, well, they relieve her of the debt that she did. They say people inherit from her. You still, you know.
Allah. I wouldn't think if a person relieves you of the debt, you would still have to pay it. But I would say a lot of that is important when it comes to contracts to know that specific contract. Generalities like that are difficult to answer. It's difficult. It could vary from contract to contract. You know what I'm saying? The student loan, this contract, and another it could be based on the contract. You know what I'm saying? But generally, if a person relieves you of the debt, you're not, you know what I'm saying, it's nothing to worry about. But you're talking about a contract that they signed in. I don't know it's difficult to put say something about in general about all contracts like that because they could vary.
As far as that get paid for the person, families most likely paid for baby start their hair, right? Whatever that's in the debts, what debts their hair was that from that person, right?
Jade, yes, but it's important. When a person dies, they owe debt. And you know, if you don't know, that generally we pay for our own funerals. Generally, you pay for your own funeral. Meaning, I'm gonna just use this number for just to make it the example. Say you die, you got $100,000 in your bank account, right? The $100,000, you have things. It's going to be deducted. It's not just going to sit there. It's going to be deducted. Deducted from what? Some people are going to inherit money from you, like Allah told us in the Quran, right? The people who get a certain amount of money from that 100,000. Also, if you owe money, it's coming out of that 100,000. Clear? Everybody with me? So yeah. Also, your Janazah expenses come out of that 100,000. Everybody with me? So yeah. All of that's going to go first. People you owe, all that's going to go first. And then what's going to be left for your people to inherit or whatever's left. Is that clear? You're going to pay all your stuff off first, that you got a clean slate going before Allah, and then your family is going to inherit. So if you had 100,000 and you down to 15 grand at the end, that's what they inherit. But guess what? You clean when you go meet Allah. Clear? So in reality, the person pays for their own Janazah package. Allah musta'an. Any other questions? Cool.
What if a person gathers like debt from different places over the years? And he can't really remember how much debt or who exactly he has to pay how much. Can the person, like, when he's leaving the will, that people should give a certain amount of, and his intention is to pay off whatever he didn't know about?
A person accumulated debt from different areas during his life or her life. They don't know how much they accumulated. These are people. The debt is with people or organizations? From different people. Okay. So say it again. Should they do what? Should they leave a will?
Should they leave in their will that, give a certain amount, as charity, and then their intention for it is to pay off these different debts that they don't remember or know about?
I mean, in a situation like that, I'm just making sure I'm understanding. Basically, they're just saying, I forgot who I owe, but take this chunk of money. No. It would be better Are we saying they don't know who they owe, or they know how much they owe?
How much they owe you know, they might forget. They might forget, like, maybe I owe this person. I don't know if I paid them back or not. And I don't know about this person either. Like,
They know the people.
They know the people.
Hey, Jay, it's better to list the people that they owe in the will and have the people check with them. You know what I'm saying? It would be better to, if you know who you owe, right? The person knows who they owe. They should put that down on paper. And that's what he was saying about the will. If you owe something, you need to put that in the will that you owe Fulan this money. How much? I don't know. But at least the people left behind can go to the person and say, listen, you know, such and such died. He said he owed you some money. I'm not sure how much it was. You dig what I'm saying? Let's just say if he did it that way, let's say you owe somebody 20,000. One person you owe 20,000. And you only left 12,000 dispersed amongst the people. But they might have 1 million. But I'm only leaving this 15 grand to give to the people I owe. You owe him 20. How you just going out so he don't get the rest of his money? You dig what I'm saying? You understand me? If that's the case, it would be better to list the people like in the will of who you do owe. I owe Fulan this, and this. I don't remember how much I owe him. Right? It will be safer because now you're talking about how much you're dependent on somebody for giving them for relieving the debt. I hope it's clear. Say, for example, it's 50,000 I owe all together. I owe 50,000. I don't know how much I owe, but I don't know how much I owe, but I really owe 50,000. I put in the will, this 20,000 goes to the people I owe that I didn't get to pay back. So what they supposed to do? I really owe 50 altogether. What the people supposed to do? Just take the L? They're forced not to, you understand? It would be better to probably overprice than underprice. Allahu Alam. I think it would be more just to mention the people by name. You don't want to just give it away to a charity. You know what I'm saying? You know you owe these 3 brothers. Put them 3 brothers in there. I owe these 3 brothers, but I forget how much I owe them. Instead of taking that $25,000 and giving it to a charity and say, that's for the brothers I owe. They still walking around living. They still want their money. You know what I'm saying? That's for the brothers I owe. I'm going to give it to charity. Inshallah, that'll wipe that out. No, mention this. I owe him, her. And I can't remember how much I owe. At least the people from the family can go and check with them. And hopefully, inshallah, they can settle it out. Inshallah. That's a whole nother problem. Allah Alam. If you can't remember who owe, Allah Alam.
I know people out there that do. They hold it down. They don't, you know.
I mean, what?
They hold it down. They'll take their favorite page or whatever.
Hold up. Hold. You gonna put us all in debt. Hold up. Let me hold $1. Let me, what that mean to y'all? Let me get do I owe you $1? Shake. I'm with you, but that's important for words though, how we understand that. Oh, if you say I'll pay you back, that's different. All right. Yeah.
People always say that for $1. Like I'm just talking like where we come from. Like
man. I mean, if a person really want their dollar back, then you know, I'm just saying if you said, for example, let's not use $1. If you say, let me hold $100, I give it to you when I get paid, right? You know the brother, he good for it. Give him $100, right? He really forget to give it back to you. You never say nothing. You know he got it. He forgets. He dies, right? One or two things gonna happen. One or two things can happen. You can go to the family and say, you know, that's not really preferable, but you know what I'm saying? If it was a big stake of money, you might want to, you know what I'm saying? Or you can just, as we say, chuck it. I mean, what does the man do? What does you mean with the option for the deceased?
Yeah, this person is not like I think the hard money to me, and then I'll give it back to you, and then I'll forget about it. I'm not gonna forget about it. No, I didn't forget about it. So, you know.
Oh yeah,
So that person I was talking about,
That person what? Uh-huh.
I forgot about it. He forgot about it. He died. Whatever.
If you live in, Allah alam, but if you live in, you should relieve the person who owes you, if they owed you anything. Because your option, if they owe you $100, your option is to what? You do have an option. You can go to their family, yo, Fulan owes me money. You can do that. He owes you money, he didn't pay you back. Do you want to do that in a time like that? You might not want to do that. So what you gonna do? Relieve the brother. If it's something that you can't, no, it's too much money. I'm not able to do that and live. Then that's a different situation. But if you're able to stand it, then it's from khair, it's from good to just relieve the person of the debt. How many other people? That one person could be other people that he, you know what I'm saying, forgot about. For the dead person?
Let's say you as a person, you owe somebody, you don't know who it is, or you don't know what it's coming to, but you know,
Allah A'lam. Fadlan. I can't hear you. Say it again, Sheikh. Oh, a good way to remind a person that owe you money. They still alive. Like they're not on their deathbed. They still, somebody walking around, they forgot they owe you money. No, they might have forgot. They forgot. I mean, you know, you don't want to. I mean, when it comes to money, you want to kind of like, you know what I'm saying, because that could cause. Writing stuff down is big, y'all. A lot of times we don't do, number one, especially if you're doing business. We act like, man, I'm good for it. I see you all the time. No, because you forget. And then we got this problem. So now when you forget or I forget, now I have to come to you and it's uncomfortable. Now we all put in the jam because we see each other all the time. I'm down, you know, good for it. Instead of putting it down on paper, it's easier to talk about. Now I'm uncomfortable and I got to find, like you saying, I got to find out a way to say it to you without, this is the crazy part, without offending you for asking you for money you owe me. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to make the relationship rocky. You got to use some type of like some wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Try to pick good timing, and it all depends. Now, I can't give a one word answer for that. It depends. Everybody different. Some people you can say stuff to. Some people you might not want to say that to him or her. You know what I'm saying? It depends on the person you're talking to. If you owe somebody money and they die, take it to the family. You owe somebody money, they die, take it to the family. If the family tell you it's okay, they might need it though. They might need it because, you know what I'm saying, for burying purposes.
So say for instance, if you have $100,000, right? You think it's preferable to pay any expenses as far as Janazah and also the debt also. But then they also have insurance. Life insurance. So when we get on your life insurance, right? Or family your life insurance, but I'm assuming it would be advised or recommended they actually money they have actually physical tangible assets to pay for debts, right? So they use insurance.
That's a can of worms, man. I'm not opening. I ain't opening that. I'm not opening that. You got the money, pay your money off. This way, leave no gray area. If it came from your money and you owe debts, there's no gray. You know what I'm saying? You always want to do stuff that. Oh, the sister's got a question, y'all. You always want to do stuff that take you out of the gray. Anything that's going to put you in the gray, if it's another option to be out of the gray, get out of the gray if you can do it. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to put, especially stuff like that. It's real, no doubt. It's real. What if someone owes the deceased money? How do you go about that? Do they pay the one who inherits the deceased wealth? What if you don't know the family? Well, if you owe money, then it will be great to go to the family. If you don't know the family, and that's kind of what we're talking about. The best thing to try to do, y'all, is exhaust all options. of finding the family. Exhaust all options of paying that money back to the person, y'all. Don't make the first thing is, I'm gonna just give it away to charity. If that's the case, that's like the last result. I've been looking, I've been asking around, I've been trying to get in touch and see if somebody, maybe such and such and such, right? It would, well, I'm gonna say, it would be worth it. It would be worth it to find out who the person's family is to give them that, but they might really need it at that time. If you can find the family, that's one thing. If you can't find the family, Allahu A'lam. That's the discussion we have. Should you just give it to charity in place of giving it to the family? Allahu A'lam. Sister. If somebody reminds me, we could try to have it for next week. The answer, inshallah. Tayyib, any other questions? If not, we'll stop there. Next week starts the chapter of the washing itself, how to wash the body. So everything today was pretty much preparing up to the wash, preparing the body up until the wash. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.